Sounds like everyone wants us to start, but sorry, we can't yet. We have to wait until 3 o'clock. Now that it's 3 p.m., I will call the special meeting of the Town of Gibsons Council to order on May 21st, 2024. We are honored to gather on the traditional territories of the Squamish Nation. First we need a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Lumley, seconded by Councillor Kroll. All those in favor? The motion carries. And first we have a delegation from Corporal Etui regarding the RCMP 2024 Q1 stats and 2023 crime stats. I'll come on up.
Pull myself, I'm gonna bring it back next time. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Good afternoon, everyone. You have the numbers before you. Can you hear me? Is this good? All right. I believe the numbers have been shared with you guys before. I thought I'd start off with if there's any questions to start, and then I can go over the report if you wish. Or I can start telling you what I have, and then we'll go from there. All right.
Start?
From your reaction, okay, we'll go with that. So first of all, I do need to bring to your attention the fact that the first quarter report this time around, you will notice that the numbers are a little bit lower and different than before, and that is due to the fact that previous quarterly reporting has included Elphinstone in the mapping that we presented before, and that error has been noted, and we've been presenting these stats since 2022. So the stats that were coming to us before, and that included Elphinstone until we realized and noted that the borders of Town of Gibsons is a little bit different than Elphinstone, so the numbers are a little bit different this time around, and I'm more than happy to answer more questions about that later. So you'll see the numbers are a little bit down this time around. From now on, it'll only be the Town of Gibsons as far as numbers are concerned. So this quarterly will be for January 1st till March 31st of this year. We will go over, I can go over as far as the offenses, what the criminal offenses have been. And I can start off with January, February, and March, pardon me. We have a total of 14 assault files that we attended to. And going down the list, the assault common would be, the total number for the 3 months is 8. And the total number of assault with weapons totals to 5. Sexual offenses for the quarterly will be 4. Sexual assault offenses is also 4. Uttering threats would be a total of 6 files that police attended to. Extortion, total of 2 files for the quarter. And harassment is a total of 6 offenses for the town of Gibsons. I can continue with each offense, or I can summarize it if you wish. But I'll start with a summary rather than taking up way more time. I can say that the 3 months in the town of Gibsons, we've had 272 criminal offenses that we attended to, or police calls for police service, my apologies, in that quarter. I can stop there and answer questions about that or continue talking. Is there any questions about the numbers? Councillor Lumley? Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Lumley. Do it through the chair.
Through the mayor. Sorry, I got excited, and I have a question. I don't think it's really about the numbers, though, so I'll wait. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No worries. In that case, I'll continue sharing with you what news we have for the quarter. As far as staffing news, we have a new corporal that joined the Sunshine Coast RCMP, Corporal Brandon Zentner. He transferred in from Prince Rupert, and he's joined the General Duty Watch, B-Watch more specifically. It's always exciting to us when we have an officer who has ties to the Sunshine Coast. It's always nice to see them come back to their, I call it the roots. So they're happy to be here with their family and everyone that they know. So that's exciting for our detachment. Next topic I want to talk about is the public safety and crime reduction. So we have been working very closely with the probation office to actively monitor offenders on conditions who have arrest warrants on the Sunshine Coast, especially when we find out that there's charge recommendations that those individuals have conditions. So we've taken it upon as part of our mandate and objective is to follow up and ensure these individuals are obeying the court orders that are given to them. So that's something we've taken on to the point where we are keeping track of how many offenders and how many arrest warrants we've accomplished over the period. So for this stat, we monitored 6 offenders, again living on the Sunshine Coast, and executed 18 arrest warrants on the Sunshine Coast. Moving on to community policing, more specifically, I'm sure some of you, or if not all of you, know that we have a constable who's dedicated strictly to community engagement. And it's Constable Karen Whitby. I'm sure some of you have met her or know her. So she's done a few things over the past 3 months to work with the community, and one of them is she took part of the BC Police Mental Health Liaison group to discuss the new Health IM assessment tool for persons experiencing mental health crisis. So I can't speak to whether, I don't believe it has been rolled out here on the coast, but it's a tool that we're looking at. I do know that, and I do know back east, I don't know if it's OPP, but I know there's another police force that uses this tool and works with health organization in the region to identify any of the mental health issues that certain individuals are going through. So it's a tool that we're looking into, and we'll have more updates on it, hopefully in the next quarter. So that's one thing we're working on. Essentially, if you're wondering what this tool is, it's meant to promote safety and improve crisis outcomes and respond better to mental health calls. So. Constable Whitby also met with the new Vancouver Coastal Decriminalization Proactive Outreach Worker, who will partner with police to improve and minimize conflict around public consumption of illicit drugs. As I'm sure, sorry, oh yeah.
Thanks. That was going to be my question. Maybe I'm not sure. I mean, Other than the amount of big words in there, what exactly would be improving and minimalizing conflict around the consumption of illicit drugs? I was just wondering if I could get like some sort of like definition of that.
Well, the public consumption, I think, the public piece, I think, is the most important.
Yeah.
Yeah, would you like me to address that specific? It's, this is something that has been going back and forth, whether it's the public asking what exactly is the new updates, what are the new laws in regards to possession of illegal substance. And while, on one hand, why we the police may believe that it's clear, there's a lot of people in the public, understandably, that don't completely understand what it means to have 2.5 grams, for example, that it was decrimmed for a period of time. So it's essentially educating and working with whoever it may be, in this case with Vancouver Coastal Health, to make sure that the messaging is consistent with what the law is and what police will work with. So as far as the actual wording, improve and minimize conflict, it's just to have consistent messaging from us, and as far as what Vancouver Coastal Health has also given information to their clients, so we're both on the same page. And especially with the latest updates or amendments to the decriminalization of illegal substance, there's been some, if not many, questions as far as what exactly does it entail, what can police do, what can police not do, and so on. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah. Two more things that Constable Whitby's been working on. She is basically confirming the support that we have for the situation table to bring together frontline professionals to address situations where people are experiencing acutely elevated levels of risk. To simplify this paragraph, essentially, it's just for us to be at the table where all the stakeholders are involved on the Sunshine Coast, may it be coastal mental health, and mainly health and supportive housing, to be at the same table. I'm not sure about probation, but as one they are, thank you, Mayor, that essentially we sit down at a table and talk about what issues we are having and what the real issues, as far as, what does a certain person need, rather than sending an email, to put it simply, rather than sending an email to talk to the person who owns that initiative and say, this is what we have. What can we do? What can we offer them? At least we can have it on paper, so that when next time we meet, we can say, okay, where are we at with this service? So this is where we would be at the table and trying to share as much information as we're allowed to assist that individual. So, any questions about that one? Okay.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah.
It's such a positive thing to bring to our community. We were at the LMLGA, and I think it was Surrey that was speaking to the effect of having that table discussion and so many different organizations involved. And seeing the outcome that they were speaking of was so positive. So I think that's just fabulous that we have that in place here is great. So yeah, I'm excited to hear more about that as we progress.
Thank you for mentioning that. While a few people have noted saying this started in England, some say this started in Surrey, BC. I don't know. All I know is it's a really good,
Saskatchewan.
there you go. There's another one. Add to the record. Because I did ask. I said that's a great idea. It's such, it's simple, and all the stakeholders are at the table. So, nevertheless, I concur with you. We're looking forward to that one. So, Lastly, as far as Constable Whitby, she has been in regular contact with Gibsons Supportive Housing and the Gibsons Community Outreach Worker regarding the needs and the issues of the vulnerable clients those groups service. This is an extremely important, very valuable person that we rely on, I'm going to use that word, as far as the service that she provides for the Sunshine Coast, and the fact that we have an open dialogue with her. And anytime that we have a person in need, she's there to assist us. So our hat goes off to her, the work that she does. And Constable Whitby is engaging more and more, essentially, is what I'm saying, with the work that she does. So, and moving on to police visibility, one of my favorites. Foot patrols continue in the downtown core with, as far as numbers, with 24 proactive patrols in Upper Gibsons and 5 proactive patrols in Lower Gibsons that were recorded. These are in addition to the response to calls for service that officers do, as they are all highly encouraged when they do attend Gibsons for any file, obviously operationally permitting, that they do conduct patrols in the area, and if allowed, if possible, to actually come out and engage with the communities. That's something we continue pushing for officers to do. Police also met informally with community members on January 31st and again on February 21st at the Tea with the Mountie. It's an event that we've been trying for the last year and a half to get going. We have it sometimes in Seychelles, sometimes we have it in Gibsons. Up until lately, folks at the Gibsons market were really excited and said, come on down whenever you can. So we're looking forward to that one. I believe next month, not to be quoted, but that's what we're aiming to do. It's essentially an event where police sit down and talk to the community about whatever issue that they have in mind and answer any questions that they can. So anytime that the public is interested, we put it out on social media. I still believe there's a better way to put it out there, to let the community know. And if you're wondering why Tea with a Mountie, it's simply our Sunshine Coast way of calling it Cop with a Coffee, or Coffee with a Cop, close. But that's what Lower Mainland does, Coffee with a Cop, so we thought we'd do something different. Why, you may be wondering? Again, Sunshine Coast flavor. And that's really it. Sorry, Mayor, you had a...
Yeah, on that, we'd I know it's still social media, but I think we've got our communications coordinator here today, and we'd probably love to, I'm sure we'd be happy to
Absolutely.
distribute those as well if you let us know about, I think it'd be good for people who are following our Town of Gibsons feed to
Absolutely.
know about these events, and they'd probably like to attend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will add one thing, even though it doesn't reflect the quarter, but very quickly in line with that is tomorrow. We are meeting at the Elphinstone High School at 11 o'clock, just setting up a table where we can just talk to the kids and, again, answering any questions that people have, in this case, our youth, which we strongly believe is very important to put it out there. So, but anyways, more on that in Q2. But the other, pardon? Oh,
Mr. D'Andrade has a question.
sorry.
My question regards Tea with a Mountie. Do you have like a 3 months or 6 months, like a booking already scheduled to?
I do not personally have it, but I know a certain officer in our office that I've delegated this task to, and I'm more than happy to share that with you guys.
I just think it's good. I mean, if you have the 6 months, or it would be great
absolutely.
for the community. Thank you.
Yep, I can do that. Moving on, our detachment, civilian staff, and police participated in the Special Olympics Polar Plunge fundraiser on February 21st. We look forward to strengthening our partnership next year for this great cause. I did make it there, but I didn't go in the water. However, if you want to know why, you can ask me later. No, I was called to a priority call, so that nobody believed me, but anyways. We're looking forward to next year's as well. And Constable Whitby has conducted 3 fraud awareness presentations and attended a community forum in Half Moon Bay regarding safety concerns. There are 6 high school and elementary school visits in Seychelles by various officers and 3 to Elphinstone Secondary. Patrols were also made at Gambier Island. And if I may touch on the fraud awareness, that is something that we continue to essentially push to have more and more of on the Sunshine Coast. And we do get a lot of questions and a lot of inquiries about fraud. So we feel it's really important to continue being engaged with our community as far as fraud awareness. Sadly, it's an issue that has not gone away, ebbs and flows, but it really doesn't go away. So Gibsons Community Police Office hosted a visit from the kindergarten class, 2 classes, I believe, at Gibsons Elementary. And this included attendance by the police dog services, which was very well received by the kids. I don't have the date, but I know I was there and it was raining really hard, but it doesn't matter because the kids didn't care. So that was a fun time for the kids in our Gibsons Elementary School. Next topic I want to share with you is traffic safety. Again, it's a topic that's dear to my heart and the hearts of many police officers because we see the need for that. So Speedwatch has been very well received in the past and has provided visibility and speed awareness in all our communities. Our detachment has a total of 9 volunteers extremely dedicated to their work. However, with the loss of our community safety coordinator position, we no longer have a coordinator for this program, so recruitment for volunteers is paused. Having said the aforementioned, we are working really hard, and I've been working with another officer who works in the office to try and stand up once again our Speedwatch because we see huge benefit for it, both in Gibsons and on the Sunshine Coast as well. So. Last but not least, partnerships in traffic community and traffic safety continue. We continue to have joint check stops with commercial vehicle inspectors and the RCMP, and we had 2 of them held in the last quarter. BC Highway Patrol attended the coast to conduct traffic enforcement throughout the coast 5 times in this quarter as well. I do have to make a note of essentially every time we have BC Highway Patrol attend the coast, for some reason it blows up on social media because of the way and how they and where they park. So it's something that we know. I know that they're here before I even on social media before I know that they're actually on the coast. So yeah, and with that, I believe that's all the info I have. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's all I have.
Any questions on that last segment of the 2023 crime statistics? Councillor D'Andrade.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank you for the descriptive part of your report. In the past was just a statistic. I think was really good because then you hear things and it's a warmer exchange. One thing that as I'm looking at the statistics from 22-23, actually was interesting because you always pay attention on the increase, and suddenly I realized, well, there's a lot of things that have decreased, but because it's just one year to another, you don't know if this is a trend or this is just a fluctuation. So I thought perhaps in the future, if it's not too much extra work, it would be nice, at least from my point of view, to understand if there's any trend happening, whether an increase or decrease. So maybe more years to come. So because right now, 2 years, you don't really know if it's a trend, right? It could be just a coincidence of 1 year from another.
Really good point and really good question. And you know what? I'm also wondering the same as well. So I'm glad you spoke for me as well. It's something I will definitely look into. It is possible. It's pretty easy to pull those numbers and look and see and ask ourselves what's going on here in this particular offense. Is there something that we can do, like fraud? You know, it's a great way to measure and seeing what's going on and how we can address it. So I'll certainly make a note after our meeting. And so.
Yep, touching on that, when we look at the 2022 and 2023, are those skewed by Elphinstone numbers being mixed in there? Because that's going to cause us problems when we're trying to compare year to year, if it is. And is there any way could somebody go through and possibly take those out if they haven't been already?
While, again, this came to my knowledge about maybe 3 weeks ago, if not 2 weeks ago, to be specific as far as the numbers. And yes, I did raise an eyebrow and said, okay. So absolutely, yeah, these numbers are obviously going to affect the future as far as trends, but really we can just still pull out the town of Gibsons and just have to resubmit the numbers one more time. They will be different. but you can still get the trend and the increase and the decrease. But as far as what was submitted, it is different, so we will have to obviously amend that.
Thank you.
I wanted to go back to, I'm always trying to figure out the organizational structure, as you know, I've asked about that last time. So there's a new corporal. How many corporals are there?
So. Green.
And is that corporal replacing another corporal?
To the best of my knowledge, Mayor, this corporal is replacing another corporal who is on general duty, which is frontline policing. So to answer your question, we have 4 corporals that are in charge of frontline policing, so 4 teams. And he is replacing another corporal that hasn't been here in over 2 years. So
Thanks. And then two sergeants, is that right?
2 sergeants and staff sergeant.
And the staff sergeant, yeah.
Jen Prunty, who's not here.
Okay.
But
I'm slowly figuring it out.
it's okay. And then you have a corporal who's talking to you right now, who's
Yeah.
that's number 5, who's in charge of community, youth, and Indigenous policing section. So.
And just on one issue that I'm seeing some concerns about lately being sent in to me is some noise disturbances at night have been happening over the weekend, the last few nights.
Yeah, about a week or so ago, I don't have it written down, but ever since Petrocan on Gibsons Way has been open 24 hours, it has come to our attention that there's been more files essentially generated as a result of the gas station open 24 hours. To answer you, if you're talking about noises, those are the only ones I'm aware of. As far as fireworks,
people being concerned that they're gunshots. But I'm kind of hearing around town that it's teenagers with.
yeah, I can personally attest to that. That was 2 days ago. I was woken up by that, and yes, the police, we did attend, and it was a bunch of youth that was deciding to set off some firecrackers. So, yeah.
So it's comforting that these are the big policing issues in our town. But I know there are other ones, but these are the ones that we get complaints of that we see.
Yeah, it's, I mean, when
Flooding
people
social
call,
media, yeah. It's like whenever I'm asked these days what our big issues are in the town, I see off-leash dogs, the big one. Yeah. I joke with seashell mainly. So. Okay, thanks a lot, Corporal.
Thank you for your time.
And next, we simply have a bylaw to adopt. We've already passed 3 readings of this. This is the zoning amendment bylaw for small-scale multi-unit housing, just, that we've done 3 readings of, so we just need a vote to adopt that. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kroll. All those in favor? That motion carries. And now we're on to another bylaw, which is just being introduced this is a new bylaw, but it's really changes to the procedure bylaw that we're quite familiar with. I had a chance to review it myself and really look at especially look at just compliance with legislation, because that's changed a lot in the last few years. And there were a lot of old things in the bylaw, particularly explaining Robert's rules and hard to understand ways and things that really aren't required in there. And Tracy Hinks provided a lot of assistance to this too, and went through herself. And we're just presenting a proposed change here, a new bylaw as a draft, as attachment A, and the list of changes is in attachment B. And I don't know if Tracy wants to add anything to my intro.
I'll just add a little bit of clarification, that the purpose for this review of the council procedure bylaw was to ensure that it aligned with the current legislation, as you mentioned. That this proposed bylaw would then replace our current council procedure bylaw number 1207. We looked at a handful of other local governments and used their council procedure bylaws as kind of a guide to see what people were doing out there and whether they had been revised. So some of those reviews were with the District of Oak Bay, City of Powell River, the Town of Comox, City of North Vancouver, and we did look at the SCRDs just as a neighbor. Trends and best practices were considered and an effort was made to enhance readability and to use plain language without making it so hard to understand that hard to apply. So every jurisdiction, the level of detail varies, so not always apples to apples. We did eliminate things that were in Robert's rules or were very prescriptive. I think that's it. Everything else is in the staff report and on the table, and options are on page 2 of the staff report.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Lumley first, and then I see Councillor Kroll.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I just, 4.26, it just reads, a couple of things read kind of funny on it. The first part says to limit speech on matters, but the one it says a member may speak to a question for longer than 5 minutes. I'm sure, is that supposed to be no longer than 5 minutes? I'm just not sure.
Only with the permission of council, it says. So yes, that does mean for, if you read the whole thing, it says only with the permission of council. And this is actually, this isn't new language. This is language we've had for
Okay.
years, many years. But we could change it if it's, that's kind of what we were trying to do. But yeah, no, it's may speak to a question for longer than 5 minutes only with the permission of council, so.
And then 3 times 5, basically.
Yeah.
What this says.
Yeah.
Okay, I just haven't, I know it's in there, I just don't know whenever I've seen it used. If someone goes over 5 minutes, I don't remember anyone or the mayor or anyone leading the meeting. I don't know who's keeping time or
Are
anything.
you keeping time?
No, I'd like
Maybe
to
you
though.
can. You can.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe you should start keeping time. That'd be a help.
I need a timepiece.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. I just wanted to acknowledge how beneficial the attachment B was. Reading this bylaw was sort of, I was thinking, okay, got to get out the old one, and then lo and behold, here's this attachment. So I really appreciate the effort and the thought and the work that went into this, because it was just a huge asset. It just makes this whole process so much simpler.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, that was Tracy's work.
Thank you,
Councillor
Mayor.
Andrade.
Thank you, Mayor. I think some of the amendments are great, but I see 2 amendments and in a way seems contradictory to me, because on the staff report, it talks about amending not to repeat language that is already on the community charter. And if you look at, there's an amendment to remove 6 sessions, right? Section 20 to 25, which is over 2 pages of information, with the rationale that is covered by Robert's Rule of Order and enshrined in the community charter. These are important sections, right? Motions, amendments, reconsideration by council member, privilege, and resolution. So it's good content. But then, on the same, there's an amendment to add authority of presiding member, which was literally taken from the community charter. So I'm trying to understand why the rationale is not to repeat the community charter, and a bunch of sections are being removed, but then there's this section being added, which is exactly copied from the community charter.
Relevance. I mean, there's a lot in that old version of the procedure bylaw, which, I mean, things like privilege, which I'm always happy, and I brought this up before to previous councils. I go, like, read this and tell me what it means. I do that to our corporate officers too. Read this and tell me what it means. Either no one knows what it means, or everybody has different versions. So it's better to rely on Robert's rules for things like, that privilege section. Whereas that piece about when we were reviewing the community charter, there's language in there largely about running the meeting, and I'm going to call it challenging the chair. And I think it's a really important part of Robert's rules, and there's a very specific way to do it that's laid out in the community charter that I didn't even know about until I read it in the community charter. So I personally felt it was good to increase awareness for this for our council in order to make our meetings run better, in order to have an awareness of this, that decisions from the chair can be challenged, and there's a certain way to do them, and there's a certain, the chair can't even vote when those challenges are made. And so sometimes there's a lot of other language in there that is replicated from the community charter. And in all procedure bylaws there is. That's all over the province. There's language replicated from the community charter. It would kind of defeat the purpose of procedure bylaws if you were to excise all language that's also in the community charter, because you have to have some things highlighted in here. So that's the decision that was behind the thinking behind that one. Go ahead.
What I understood, this was specifically about point of order, but you're saying this is about challenging the chair.
Could you tell me the exact
4.3.
4.3? I think the one about points of order was already in there.
It wasn't the old under conduct and debate, but now a new section was created. I'm just trying to understand the rationale. Why is there a need to emphasize this and take all the other stuff that I thought was the good information?
Yeah, this is about challenging the chair. It's not really about points of order. I mean, I call it that. This is it's on an appeal by a council member of a chair's decision. That's what this section 4.3 is. So, I mean, if the mayor makes a decision on a point of order or makes any other point of order decision, a councillor can say, I challenge that decision, or I appeal that decision, and then there will be a vote on it. And I mean, I think it happens very rarely, but I think it's a really important tenet of democracy in meetings, which doesn't get used very often. So hence, it helps to actually have it in the procedure bylaws. So there's better awareness for councillors of it, because it should always be up to council ultimately up to council to rule on points of order, even though the mayor does it or the chair does it. But it can always come to a council vote to ultimately decide a ruling. This provides clarity on how that's done.
Okay, so now I'm a little bit confused, because if my understanding is this discuss if the mayor brings a point of orders, other people can challenge, and the mayor will not vote, right? But so what happens if a councillor, or it doesn't matter, someone that is not presiding brings a point of order and is challenging? So it just raised more questions.
So I think that's in here too, in another. If a member of council raises a point of order, the mayor needs to rule on that point of order, needs to make a decision on that point of order to say, yes, we'll if someone says point of order, this person's gone speaking over 5 minutes, then the mayor will say, no, we're going to allow that person to speak longer for some reason, and then the mayor can be appealed on that, but or the mayor could say, yes, this point of order is right. This person's spoken over 5 minutes, so we're going to move to something else. That's an example of how that would work.
But then if someone challenged that, because it can be challenged, right?
Yep.
I'm just trying to understand, the person who asked for the point of order can vote as well? Because
Yep.
okay, it's a little bit confusing.
Or to appeal. That's why it's right in here. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why I thought it would be a good idea to highlight it in here in our procedures bylaw, because it's a little-known section of the community charter.
Okay, and so all the other stuff that was removed is not relevant?
Well, do you want to argue for its relevance, or like, I mean, a lot of it was, I mean, I used the example of privilege before, which is not something I've been doing this for 18 or 19 years, and I've never seen that raised in meetings.
If I may finish, I think my concern is because obviously this is a lot of this is on a community charter. I think in a way, this is just helping councilors to, instead of having to go to the community charter, just having a kind of, okay, these are the most important points. But by removing, so that, and I understand, by adding the.
Could you be more specific? I'm sorry, but there's a lot of what was Robert's rules that was taken out. Certain interpretations of Robert's rules. Robert's rules is also consistently updated, so it makes sense in the procedure bylaw just to say we use the most updated version of Robert's rules. Whereas some of the language that was interpreting Robert's rules from 30 years ago, we're still in here, which we're proposing to take out. But if there's something from the community charter, it sounds like you're saying that there's something from the community charter that it has been taken out. So could you be more specific?
Yeah, well, this is actually written here, the rationale for removing sections 20 to 25, which in my view are good orientations, motions generally, motion for the main question, amendments generally, reconsideration by council member. I know you mentioned about privilege and resolutions, how should we conduct? If this is removed, and the rationale it says here, the presiding, the rationale is the.
So just everything you just listed is not in the community charter. It's in Robert's rules.
Okay, so for us to get that right, we have to go to Robert's rules now. Yeah. And do we have, does council have the latest version? Because I have a version from 6 years ago or something.
You could.
Online? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. It seems a little bit like aleatory how we're doing that.
Are there other questions? Councilor D'Andrade?
I actually have a question regarding the subject that Councilor Lumley, because if someone speaks more than 5 minutes, and let's say a councilor raises and points of order, who is really tracking the over 5 minutes? I know it hasn't happened here, but since it is on the So you will be tracking, okay, but then how do I know that you started in the right time? So that's what I'm saying. It's not transparent and reliable, so I just find funny this things that we cannot really track. It could be all arguably.
Well, then that's why that section you first raised is so important. I mean, it's ultimately the authority that needs to be, of council that needs to decide. Was if a mayor says, I think you've been speaking too long, we're going to move on debate, then that can be appealed by council, and council will decide whether it's been too long or not. But I mean, the 5 minutes is not, obviously, we know from experience, nobody's got a timer here. It's more just like when we all know that's kind of the ballpark, and we have to, it's probably more likely, you know, just speaking for myself, I'm probably not going to notice if someone's spoken 5 minutes or 6 minutes, but once you've spoken like much longer than that, then I'll probably be pretty sure that you've gone over 5 minutes. So that's when it would come forward. But as Councillor Lumley's pointed out, it hasn't happened this term yet. So
I'm just concerned, Mayor, how this can be, if it happens, how can it be challenged, right? So, okay, I appeal. What's proof you have for 5 minutes?
like that's 4.3. It's ultimately going to be. It can ultimately, if it's challenged, it's ultimately the decision of the council. Majority council. So, Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, thanks. Just through the mayor, I think what can happen is that if somebody thinks that they're challenging somebody's time, like say someone's arguing a point for too long, like say me, and then I'll call a point of order, and then the mayor could say, well, if we don't get a unanimous vote, if the mayor says, well, it hasn't been over 5 minutes, or he said, yes, you've been speaking for quite a while, council can still unanimously vote to let that person continue to speak. That's the thing. So it's almost like a point of order, like a regular point of order when, you know, when the guy during, we were Zooming and the guy talked like for, it seemed like 10 days about the cat bylaw, but it was about like 20 minutes, and I called a point of order, and the council at that time voted against my point of order, and then we got to hear the cat bylaw guy talk for another 40 minutes. So that's a good example.
Oh, the highlights, historical highlights of Gibsons Council. Yeah. So we've got page 19 of our Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. I'm assuming we want to take the recommendations in parts, that we repeal the,
Or that you can move them all together or in parts. It's up to you.
okay, in that case, I'd like to move the recommendations that that the council procedure bylaw 1207-2015 be repealed, and the council procedure bylaw 1320-2024 be given first, second, and third reading.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any more discussion? Councillor DeAndretti?
Thank you. Mayor, one thing that I would like to bring, when we amended this bylaw for the first time, this council, the part that regulate the content was taken off, and one of the things was inquiries. And obviously, I was concerned with the lack of inquiries. And one of the things that was decided is that we were going to review in 6 months, and it has been over a year. So I'm just like to hear from you, what's your intent?
Well, we're reviewing the bylaw and we're doing it now. Yeah.
Exactly, but we are not dealing with the inquiries that.
That was never there was the review of the bylaw, and it was never inquiries. It was the order of proceedings, which was taken out. And the order of proceedings was something, again, that was a change to the community charter that's no longer required in procedure bylaws. So that was a previous update.
Yes, I understand. But I remember I was concerned with the inquiries because obviously in the past we could have asked questions from the audience and now we can't. And you said that you were going to review that. We still can?
Sure. I mean, it's the discretion of council.
So how do we go about it? Each meeting with this?
You want to have I mean, we've tried this before. You could have a vote at the beginning of every meeting if you want to try to add it to every agenda. But it's not really, I don't think it's something that has been.
That's not productive.
No, it's not. Any
Okay.
other debate on the motion? All those in favor? The motion carries. Now on to 5.1. Now, we don't need to consider this recommendation anymore because we received unfortunate news today that Ocean Fest will not be going ahead. The reason for that is they in the short time period, they couldn't get the support, the financial support they needed. We did commit, we did put forward $5,000 from council, but I think particularly from the community, from businesses, the support just hasn't been there, and that's unfortunate. I think there were even specific business owners who come to me on a regular basis saying they want another festival in the community, and when it came time to support it, they didn't want to support it. So I think maybe it's a matter of getting the message out that maybe I think Ocean Fest probably needs to maybe consult the community more in terms of what people are actually willing to put their funds towards for fundraising and get the message out more about for over a longer period of time of what the vision really is to get more people on board for it. So that's unfortunate, but hopefully we'll look forward to Community Festival next summer. Councillor Lumley.
It's strange that would be the answer because I receive many solicitations to support events like the Jazz Fest coming up, which I support. I support Search and Rescue. I support. No one ever contacted me about this for any support, and I'm a business owner. I'm just not sure what the process was, but I wasn't asked to help support it at all. And it's Ocean Fest, and my business is clearly on the ocean. I don't. I mean, you might want to start there.
I've had that conversation with them. I said, I said maybe that's somebody you should approach for sure, that business. But I've heard about other businesses that either didn't come through with much or weren't supportive. So yeah, but it's clearly what's needed is more time to get the message out and to get some input and to do the fundraising. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. On another note, sort of vis-a-vis festival, I understand that Conchita Harding has managed to obtain the funding she required to pull off the Canada Day event that she outlined with us. So at least there will be an event on Canada Day.
And I'll just ask staff if we've got, the permitting for that is all going ahead. Yeah. Okay, good. Not a summer festival, but a Canada Day event. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to something else from our Deputy Corporate Officer. Sanitary sewer and outfall project. I didn't know that was your area of expertise, but we're a small town and everybody does their part in different areas. I think, this is an AEP. Could maybe you just summarize the history of it briefly for why we're looking at this today? Thanks.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to introduce the legislative requirements, process, and proposed schedule to move forward with seeking elector approval to authorize long-term borrowing for the sanitary sewer and outfall project and the water main and road restoration project alternative approval process, or AAP. Both bylaws received statutory approval by the Inspector of Municipalities on May 10th. And council must, in order to conduct an AAP, they must establish the deadline for receiving elector responses, establish elector response forms, and make a fair determination of the number of electors in the area to which the approval process applies. Staff have developed the attached process timeline and recommend a response deadline of July 3rd, 2024. This date meets the notice requirements set out in the community charter. We received a provincial voters list in March and came up with 3,930 eligible electors, including 22 non-resident property electors in that total, with a 10% threshold of 393. So the recommendations on page 2 and 3 of the staff report must be approved by council to proceed to AAP.
Okay, and I see those recommendations as are on pages 40 and 41 of our agenda. Councillor D'Andrade?
Yeah, I support all the recommendations. I just want to have assurance that the advertise really explain that is, because it can be confusing for people who don't know the process to understand that it's 10% against that act against. So anyways, I'm sure you're considering that, but I just want to have the assurance that this will be well explained.
Thanks for that input. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We've drafted a full-page ad for the Coast Reporter to run this Friday and the following Friday, and it's got all the details outlining how the AAP process works and how it is in opposition, that they fill out a form when it's in opposition of the project borrowing. Yeah, it's quite detailed. And we've got a website, we've got a web page as well. We're also putting some boxes out at the front for people who aren't maybe using electronic information. They can come in and get their forms that way. So, and staff will be on hand for the entire process if anybody has any questions.
Councillor Kroll?
I'd like to move the recommendations on page 2 and 3 of the report, or pages 40 and 41 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Kroll. Seconded by Councillor D'Andrade. Any discussion? All those in favor? The motion carries. Thank you. And now we're going to item 6.2, which is from our CAO on 494 South Fletcher interior renovation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to update council on the status of the renovation project at 494 South Fletcher and to request additional funding to complete the project. In 2022, council authorized a budget of $316,000 out of the COVID-19 restart fund. The project includes creating a climate control archival space, which is something the town doesn't presently have, additional meeting and training space and offices as well for the infrastructure services department. Last year, the town also applied for and received a grant of $30,000 to create an emergency operations center, which will be a first for Gibsons. That includes an emergency backup power, satellite communications, and IT support equipment for a standalone emergency operations center. The EOC would operate on an as-need basis and out of the training meeting space there. With the limited, in 2023, design and permitting were completed, and in early fall of last year, invitations to tender were sent out. Bids were received and ranged from $700,000 to nearly $1 million, well above the available budget at the time. With the limited budget in place, staff acted as the general contractor and hired a project manager firm to coordinate the various trades. Significant progress was made in terms of demolition, framing, plumbing, and electrical. However, the HVAC, interior doors and windows, insulation, drywall, and finishes remain outstanding. It is estimated that to complete the outstanding work, an additional $295,000 will be required. The 2,300 square foot project has largely been covered by grants. The total project costs will be approximately $611,000, including the initial $316,000, which translates at a cost of roughly $265 a square foot, which is well below the lowest bid that we had received last year. Staff is recommending that additional request be funded out of the general accumulated surplus and out of the remaining COVID-19 restart fund. Lorraine, our Director of Finance, and our Director of Engineering have also supported this report and perhaps could provide a bit more comment on the recommended funding for the remaining of the project.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so just to speak to the accumulated surplus, so that surplus has been growing over the last few years. Right now, it's sitting at 1.2 million. If just over 1.2 million, if council approves the use of the 250,000, it'll be still at, the remaining balance will still be at double of what the historical value used to be of that fund. So the fund's in much healthier shape than it used to be, which is really helpful considering this request. The surplus is generally used for operations for unexpected costs. In this case, however, the capital expenditure is going to directly support operations because it's going to be used for mainly operations center. So another a link for that. So again, good use of funds. The 250,000, in my view, is of our funds is good value because we're going to be leveraging our town funds and we're going to be leveraging grant funding. So although it's a significant amount of money, the majority of funds for this project is grant funded. So the value that we get from the project and for our contribution is quite good. And also, I don't know if you remember, but in the 5-year financial plan, staff had built in the operations and maintenance for this project to be complete. So that portion of the costs are already in the 5-year plan. Thank you.
Okay, look to council for questions. Councillor Lumley.
No questions. I just was going to congratulate staff on being like a really good general contractor, because you saved a lot of money from the lowest bid. And sometimes it pains me to see bids come in, and I get that's where we are today. But I mean, the difference between 700,000 and $1 million is 42%. Sometimes I look at some of these bids that go out and it just blows my mind what that difference could be. But anyway, yeah, I just thought job well done.
Councillor DeAndretti.
Just a quick reminder, what's the size of the area that's going to be renovated and how many employees? I understand it's going to be the infrastructure department. It's all staff is going to be there?
So the space-wise, what the health authority used to occupy down there is 5,000 square feet. This is half of that space, so it's a little bit less than half, because then the remaining is where Scredo is at, and also the Visitor Information Center. In terms of the use of the space, in terms of departments, I think everyone will use the space, but in the offices that are there are primarily for infrastructure services. At the moment, we've got people between finance and infrastructure and planning downstairs, and it's quite tight there. And just from a sort of a workflow, trying to have the departments a little bit more together and make sense for us.
Councillor Thompson.
Just a point of curiosity, when a renovation like this happens, through you, Mayor, does the town's capital asset value increase? Would that have a benefit?
Go to Director of Finance.
Yeah, so this would be listed, finance tracks all the capital projects, anything that's classified as a tangible capital asset, which this would be, basically improves the betterment of the building, it will be capitalized, yeah.
Councillor DeAndretti. Councillor DeAndretti is moving the recommendation associated with this report, and it's seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion on the recommendation? All those in favor? The motion carries. So 6.3, thank you. 6.3, I'll also extend my thanks to staff for all their work on this one. I know it's been kind of a concern in recent weeks, especially for so nice to find the resolution. 6.3 is Parkland Covenant Discharge, which I think is, I'll let someone else explain this one. I think it's kind of a hanging over from the past.
It is, thank you. Through you, Ms. Mayor. So this covenant was put in place, I think, in 2008 as part of the Phase 1 Parkland subdivision. It was a condition that council put there, and it was essentially a roadmap for Phase 1, so that essentially they put in place a building scheme. They had certain standards for the roads to be dealt with. They put in geothermal, that type of thing. I do have copies of the report, the covenant, if you want to look at it. All of the conditions were satisfied by November 2010, but the covenant wasn't discharged. So since that time, there's been multiple subdivisions, and because that covenant was put on the parent parcel, this covenant now is on all of the parcels in Parkland. It's never been a problem until recently, when the developer has been trying to place a strata plan with land titles, and land titles has now asked the town to sign off on each of those titles before they can deposit the strata plan. So it's taking up quite a lot of time. So we're just asking that we get a resolution to discharge that covenant.
Any questions? Councillor DeAndretti?
Thank you. I just want, is this covenant public or?
Yes, it is. So you, if you were to do any title search on a property in Parkland, you would see that on the title.
I think I'm looking on page 54 here. There are two options here, including one recommended by staff. Councillor Kroll.
I'd like to move option 1 on page 2 of the report, page 54 of the agenda.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Lumley. Any discussion of option 1, that staff be directed to discharge the covenant? All those in favor? The motion carries. And now on to item 6.4. Looks like we have a report on this, so I was going to mention the report in the agenda is very concise and helpful.
Okay.
And we'll have a concise
We have a very quick introduction.
here too.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this property is on Dogwood. It's accessed from Dogwood and it backs onto Blackberry Lane. It currently has a main house with a secondary suite and then a garden suite that's accessed from Blackberry Lane. The lot area is 570 square meters, and it's the zoning is R2, which permits a main house, a secondary suite, and a garden suite. You're allowed to have a secondary suite and a garden suite on the lot if the lot is over 750 square meters. And so because this is 570 square meters, it doesn't fit that. Just a little background here. Back in May 2016, there was a development permit was issued for a garden suite. In October 2016, the owner at the time applied for a temporary use permit to allow for a secondary suite to remain while the garden suite was being built. And this allowed for the garden suite to gain occupancy in 2017. And then that temporary use permit was renewed with an expiry of 2023. Now, the property has changed hands. There is a garden suite and a secondary suite on site. And the property owner, who is here, Brian Clark, would like to legalize what's there, and he would like to gain a building permit to update the building and the secondary suite. So we have suggested a zoning amendment, and that would permit the 3 residential units on the property. This zoning would be site-specific, and there would be a certain wording put into the zoning bylaw under the R2 zone, and it essentially says that a garden suite and a secondary suite can be permitted in conjunction with each other on the property. We've suggested a site-specific condition because the OCP and the zoning bylaw are going through a review process right now and being updated, and with Bill 44, the province's new legislation, there will be some changes coming through. So there's some options here. Option 1 would be to direct staff to prepare the notice for first reading. Option 2 would be to request changes, and the third option is to reject the application. The staff recommendation would be to go with option 1.
Any questions from council here? Councilor DeAndrade?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wondering if there's a way of squeezing a parking space right at the, I think it's Blackberry, seems to have a space there. Because I mean, the issue here is parking, obviously, and my concern is this is going to set precedent, because even though we are doing specifically for this area, other people can come forward, and also in the near future, if Bill 44, so to avoid parking, and I don't have any hope that in the near future, people in Gibson would have less cars necessarily, especially living lower mainland, in the lower Gibsons. So I think my first, is there a way of squeezing?
Look to staff for that.
Yeah. So there are some options. There is a parking space on Blackberry Lane for the garden suite already. In terms of parking for the secondary suite, they could perhaps replace the landscaping that's in front of the house and have another driveway. That would be up to the Director of Infrastructure to allow that.
If I may, through the mayor, we have had some conversations with the planner about that specific issue, and the hesitation that I have with doing a spot changing of the basically the road section standards and what is allowable within that road corridor for this individual property is, again, if we're trying to avoid setting a precedent where we were creating on-street parking where that wouldn't be technically or generally allowed by the classification of that road. So understanding that we're looking at the change to density on single-family parcels with this small-scale housing change, and we're going to be going through the OCP process and rezoning and doing a parking needs assessment in town, my strong preference would be to wait until we've had an opportunity to go through that and establish a standard for all of the streets in town as far as where we want to see on-street parking, where we would be maybe looking to add additional driveways as an alternative as well, and to create an opportunity for more on-site parking. And so in the interest of trying to avoid creating a standard on the fly to sue one parcel, I was hesitant to approve a secondary driveway or basically on-street parking for this property, just out of the interest of trying to avoid setting a precedent. But it's recognized that it's complicated, and it's certainly going to be more of an issue as the legislation really kicks in and we start to see more of this type of infill development.
Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. You know, the whole parking thing is, it seems to be one of these things that is constantly bugging us, and I think something that we might consider moving forward, like I see the need for this type of accommodation and infill, particularly in the lower village, and there's not a lot of areas where infill is simple, but it works here. I think something we might consider moving forward and see how this plays out is look at what, for example, the City of Vancouver does, where you have street permit parking, which becomes a source of revenue for one thing. And if someone's having to pay for parking, they might become a little more cognizant of, do I really need that second vehicle? And it could potentially lead to less of a parking problem if people were having to pay for zone permit parking.
Councillor Lumley?
Thanks. Through the mayor, I could probably save you the time and effort of a parking study and tell you the town needs more parking and the needs on-street parking. But there's a couple things, is that without it, people just park there anyway, and it just becomes a dog's breakfast. I know it's dogwood. It's not, maybe pun intended, but I'm not that smart. But and even on that property, and I know that, and I actually lived on Dogwood, and all the properties, because all these nice properties with grass basically to the road become just, people just drive and park, drive and park, drive. Now it's just like mud and guck. And then I know someone from the community actually took me out to their property that's on Franklin. So instead of the on-street parking, I don't know if you're probably aware of this as well, because I think our bylaw officer brought it up in one of our meetings. I think they took it upon themselves to create this parking, and it's like gravel. Like they've created this kind of like, it's a really not a harsh parking lot, but a park to park. And I guess that they've got in trouble for that. But I think it's going to be increasingly difficult to, and I share Councillor DeAndrade and Councillor Kroll's thoughts. It's that, you know what, it's, if we think people are going to like give up their cars in the near future, we're probably dreaming. The only thing with permit parking is that means no one else can park there, which becomes another bylaw officer job. So I don't know what the answer is, but I can guarantee you more parking is necessary. But I do support the option one here, because it's, you know what can you say? It's already it's happening. So why would you take housing away? I mean, we're for housing, so I would support the option one here.
So are you moving that? Yeah, that's moving, seconded by Councillor Kroll. Yeah, I'll just state I support it too. I remember when this first came forward in 2016, and supported it then, and wanted it to be. I felt there was a lot of conversation about it then, and thought, yeah, from that it could have been made permanent. But at that time, it was only really the temporary use permit was really the only option that we had. And since then, there have been, I presume, quite a number of tenants going through there and finding parking. And the neighbor, I haven't heard about neighbor complaints. So it's kind of immersed. It's having that extra unit there is something that the neighborhood is used to. Any other? Councillor Thompson.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So currently, the main house, the carriage house, and the suite are being utilized. Is that?
That I don't know. They have been, though, and they definitely have been. There was a temporary use permit for, does staff know? Does staff know?
Yeah, I can clarify that. So right now, the secondary suite and the garden suite have tenants in, but the main house does not.
Right. So if we were to take into consideration infrastructure's feedback on waiting to be able to create a parking solution that has a bigger consideration in mind, how would we be affecting the functioning of saying we want to, when 44 comes through, that we have that we're doing this in a way that we're taking in these areas parking considerations as a whole? How would, if we waited, how would we be affecting the use of this property?
I want to clarify, and I can get a response from staff here, but I don't think staff was suggesting that we wait on this. I think staff was suggesting that we wait on the engineering process of
Fair.
creating a new parking spot.
Yeah,
Which
fair.
isn't part of the decision here.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I probably worded that a little bit incorrectly, but yeah, that's what I was driving to, was if we are to wait to take the consideration of how the structure of that area may look as we're looking at a bigger picture. I'm trying to understand how this particular situation, if I was to make the suggestion of waiting, how would the use of this property change?
Waiting for what? Sorry.
For us to be able to look at the OCP, look at, as Bill 44 coming through, when we're going to be supporting these additional living spaces, and we're taking into consideration the impact on a whole block of parking.
Sorry, but I'm just, what are we waiting to do? Are we waiting to approve this, or are we waiting to create another parking spot? Because that's not what.
Sorry, waiting to
I
approve
think-
this, to have a bigger understanding of what we're doing for density in these areas, as opposed to,
That, I want to be clear, that's not what was being suggested by the Director of Engineering. He was talking about creating a different parking spot.
right.
That's what he was
Okay,
talking about
yeah.
waiting for. He wasn't talking about waiting for, this is recommended by staff.
Totally.
This,
It got me that a comment of looking at our bigger picture of our community.
and we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking is, when we're looking at this particular, if we go for option 2 and request changes, that we are going to look at the whole community in our OCP and make a decision on what we're going to do for spot zoning at another time.
So option 1 is on the table right now. It's been moved and seconded. That's the question before us right now, option 1.
So I'm going
And
too
and
far down the
all
track?
yeah, and everything you're talking about an OCP update, about a parking study, looking at the entire town, big picture, that is all gonna happen. This one change to one property is not gonna affect that one bit. Maybe Councillor Kroll can help.
Thank you, Mayor White. I think the question Councillor Thompson has is, if we went with the other option, because this property is existing under a temporary use permit, which has expired, they would not be able to provide the accommodation, the housing accommodation that they currently provide. They would have to revert to a lesser density on the property.
Thank you,
And that's what we're
Councillor
trying to avoid.
Yeah.
Any more
Right, I
debate on
appreciate
this motion? All those in favor? And that's the option to direct staff to prepare notice of first reading. And yeah, this is just notice of first reading, so we'll be seeing this again. And that motion carries. And next, we have our annual SOFI report, this Statement of Financial Information for 2023. And we have a recommendation that the Town of Gibson's Statement of Financial Information for the year ended December 31st, 2023 be approved. Councilor Lumley, moving that. No, there's a motion that we need to put forward on that. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Kroll. And yeah, I don't think, we do need to pass it. Sorry, it was, that was brought to me earlier today. That was brought to my attention that we needed a recommendation, and it was added to my agenda anyway, so that's why I read it out. All those in favor? The motion carries. And then there's another similar reporting of remuneration, expenses, and contracts, which is just for information. Any questions on that? And now we have a motion to close, which would be that we close the meeting in accordance with sections 91A and K of the Community Charter. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? The motion carries. Thanks.